The Indiana Fever GM just sat down for an interview that has the entire WNBA on edge. For months, she stayed quiet while the league burned around her superstar. But now, she's finally speaking out about Caitlin Clark, and what she's revealing about that locker room, nobody saw this coming.
Game, you certainly play like that. What do you like more, setting your teammates up or scoring the ball yourself?
Honestly, I think setting my teammates up, I think that just provides so much more energy to the team. It gets everybody going, and when everybody can touch the ball and get going in that way, I think it just
For months, the Indiana Fever front office said nothing, while the internet burned with speculation about locker room tension, while fans watched Natasha Howard ignore Caitlin Clark on the court, wide open, begging for the ball, completely stranded, while social media exploded with theories about jealousy, resentment, and veteran players refusing to accept their rookie superstar. The general manager stayed silent. The team president stayed silent. The entire organization acted like nothing was happening. But now the woman in charge has finally opened her mouth. And what she just admitted about the Indiana Fever locker room, it's going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about Caitlin Clark's first year in the WNBA. Here's what you need to understand before we get into what she said. When the Fever drafted Caitlin Clark with the #1 overall pick in April 2024, everyone assumed it would be a fairy tale, the hometown hero, the generational talent, the player who would single-handedly drag a struggling franchise back to relevance. And for the fans, it worked perfectly. Ticket sales exploded. Jersey sales shattered records. Every arena Clark walked into was suddenly sold out for the first time in years. But inside that locker room, behind those closed doors, the story was very, very different. The Fever started the season 1-8, 1 win, 8 losses. Clark was turning the ball over at a historic rate, 21 turnovers through just 3 games. The chemistry wasn't there, the trust wasn't there, and according to multiple reports, some veteran players weren't exactly eager to help their new rookie find her footing. Then came the moment that changed everything. With the Fever struggling near the bottom of the standings, general manager Lin Dunn finally decided to speak. Not to the media, not in a press conference, but to her own team, in a moment that would later be revealed to the public. And what she said, it pulled the Fever back from the brink. All those people on social media, they're not relevant, Dunn told her players, according to an interview with ESPN. What matters is what the people around you that you value think and what you think. We had to make sure we blocked out the noise. She continued, it could have gone sideways real quick at 1-8. The character of people that we have in that locker room, they just weren't going to let that happen. But here's the part of the story nobody's talking about, because when Dunn says the character of people in that locker room, she's not talking about everyone. She's talking about the ones who stayed, the ones who bought in, the ones who didn't let jealousy destroy what could have been something special. And the ones who didn't, well, let's just say the Fever's front office has a very long memory. Now, let me take you inside what Lin Dunn really meant when she talked about the Fever's locker room culture. Because here's the thing about that 1-8 start. It wasn't just about losing games. It was about something much more dangerous. A team that was supposed to be a championship contender was secretly falling apart from the inside. The Fever had done everything right on paper. They brought in championship veterans like Dewana Bonner and Natasha Howard. They added toughness with Sophie Cunningham. They hired Stephanie White, one of the most respected coaches in the league. Every analyst said the same thing. This team is ready to compete for a title. But nobody talks about what happens when you throw 6 new players into a locker room and expect chemistry to magically appear. The early season footage tells the real story. Cameras caught Clark throwing her arms up in frustration when Natasha Howard didn't pass her the ball, a moment that went viral within hours. Social media exploded. Was Clark a diva? Was Howard freezing out the rookie? Was the locker room already split into factions? Dunn saw all of it, and what she realized, what she's now finally admitting, is that not every veteran on that roster was ready to accept Caitlin Clark as the future of the franchise. Think about Natasha Howard for a second. She came into that season with her own goals, her own dreams. Before the season even started, Howard publicly declared that she wanted to win MVP. Not help Caitlin Clark win MVP, she wanted it. "I actually want to win MVP," Howard said, "MVP and Defensive Player of the Year." That's not a bad thing. That's competitiveness. That's what makes great players great. But when you pair that level of personal ambition with a rookie who's being handed the keys to the franchise before she's played a full season, when every camera follows Clark, every endorsement check goes to Clark, every conversation starts and ends with Clark, yeah, that's a recipe for tension. And the tension was real. The Fever struggled with turnovers and inconsistent shooting those first few weeks. The offense looked disjointed, players seemed unsure of their roles, and according to multiple reports, some of the veterans weren't exactly eager to make Clark's transition easy. But here's where Lin Dunn's leadership changed everything. Instead of letting the locker room fracture, she stepped in. Not with a trade, not with a press conference, but with something much simpler and much harder. She forced the veterans to have an honest conversation. It could have gone sideways real quick at 1-8, Lin Dunn later admitted, and she wasn't exaggerating. One more loss, one more viral moment of frustration, one more anonymous quote to a reporter, and that locker room could have become a war zone. But the veterans made a choice. Not all of them, but enough of them. They chose to buy in. And the ones who didn't? Well, let's just say the Fever's front office has a very long memory, and when free agency hit, some of those faces weren't in the building anymore. Because Lin Dunn isn't just protecting Caitlin Clark, she's protecting the culture. And in the WNBA, that's worth more than any stat line. So which veterans bought in? And more importantly, which ones didn't? Lin Dunn didn't name names. She's too smart for that. But the timeline tells us everything we need to know. Let's start with the ones who stayed. Kelsey Mitchell, the Fever's longtime star guard who could have easily resented a rookie stealing her spotlight. She'd been in Indiana since 2018. She'd suffered through losing seasons, empty arenas, and zero national attention. Then Clark shows up and suddenly everyone wants tickets to see her team. Most players in Mitchell's position would have bristled, would have made things difficult behind the scenes, would have leaked stories to the media about how the rookie isn't all that special. Mitchell did the opposite. She became Clark's backcourt partner, her safety valve, the player who told Clark, "It's your team, I've got your back." And the results speak for themselves. Mitchell had arguably the best season of her career playing alongside Clark. Her scoring efficiency went up, her shot quality improved. Because for the first time in her career, she wasn't the only player the defense had to worry about. That's what real veterans do. They recognize when a rising tide lifts all boats. Now let's talk about the other side, the players who left. The Fever made a calculated decision after the 2024 season. They let multiple veterans walk in free agency, didn't fight to keep them, didn't offer competitive contracts, just moved on. And in the WNBA, where roster spots are precious and every player knows everyone else's business, that silence spoke volumes. According to league sources, at least 2 veterans from that 2024 Fever roster were quietly shopped to other teams before free agency even started. The front office didn't want the drama, didn't want the tension, didn't want players in the locker room who weren't fully committed to building around Caitlin Clark. Lin Dunn addressed this indirectly in her interview. "We had to make sure we blocked out the noise," she said. "What matters is what the people around you, that you value, think." Read between the lines there. The people around you that you value. Meaning, there were people in that locker room the Fever didn't value. People who weren't bought in. People who were part of the problem, not the solution. And those people, they're gone now. But here's what nobody's talking about. Because the veterans who left, they're not staying quiet. They're telling their own version of events to anyone who will listen. And according to multiple sources close to the situation, some of those former Fever players have been privately complaining about Clark's princess treatment since the moment she was drafted. One former teammate allegedly told an associate she gets away with everything. The refs protect her, the front office protects her, the league protects her. Meanwhile, the rest of us have to earn every single thing. That quote hasn't been made public, but it's been circulating in WNBA circles for months. And now that Lin Dunn has finally spoken out, those private complaints are about to become very, very public. Because when a general manager breaks her silence, everyone else feels entitled to break theirs too. The Fever's locker room truth is finally exposed, but this story is far from over.
You've heard the drama, the tension, the whispers of veterans who refuse to buy in. But here's what Lin Dunn really thinks about Caitlin Clark. And honestly, it might be the most important part of this entire story. Dunn didn't just praise Clark's game, she praised something much deeper. She's a generational talent, Dunn said in that interview, but then she kept going. More importantly, she's a generational competitor. There's a difference. You can have talent and not have that fire. She has both. Think about what Dunn is really saying here. She's been in basketball for over 4 decades. She's seen legends. She's coached champions. She's built franchises from nothing. And she's telling you that Caitlin Clark has something most players never develop. Not just skill, but an unbreakable will to win. That's not coach speak. That's a general manager who has seen enough basketball to know when someone is truly special. Dunn also addressed the elephant in the room, the jealousy narrative that Sophie Cunningham started and the entire internet ran with. There's always going to be an adjustment when you bring in a player of her caliber, Dunn explained carefully. Not everyone handles it the same way, but the ones who matter, the ones who are here, they figured it out. Notice what she didn't say. She didn't deny the jealousy existed. She didn't call Cunningham a liar. She just said the Fever moved past it. And that right there, that's a general manager protecting her franchise while still telling the truth. Because the truth is messy. The truth is that not every veteran wanted to share the spotlight with a 22-year-old rookie. The truth is that some players resented Clark before she even played her first game. The truth is that the Fever's 1-8 start wasn't just about basketball. It was about egos, territory, and the painful reality of change. But Lin Dunn didn't panic. She didn't blow up the roster. She didn't throw anyone under the bus. She just waited, watched, and then quietly moved on from the players who couldn't get on board. That's how you build a winner. Not with drama, not with trades, but with patience, honesty, and the courage to let the wrong people walk away.
So where does all of this leave the Indiana Fever? Lin Dunn finally spoke. The locker room truth is out. The veterans who bought in stayed. The ones who didn't, they're gone. But here's the part of the story nobody's talking about. The part that should scare every single Fever fan. Because this offseason, everything is about to change. Let me explain. The WNBA's collective bargaining agreement expires on October 31st, 2025. That's just months away. And according to multiple players, including Sophie Cunningham herself, there's a real possibility of a lockout. The league came back and really gave us nothing, Cunningham said during exit interviews. And so there's a potential lockout, because I promise you that we are not going to play until they give us what we deserve. That's kind of where it's headed, unfortunately. That's not a threat. That's a warning. And here's where it gets even more complicated for the Fever. Right now, only 3 players on Indiana's roster are under contract for next season: Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, and rookie Michaela Timpson. Everyone else, free agents, including Kelsey Mitchell, including Sophie Cunningham, including Natasha Howard and Lexi Hall. The Fever's general manager, Amber Cox, was crystal clear about the team's priority. I'm going to sound like a broken record from last year. The priority will be Kelsey Mitchell and making sure she remains in a Fever jersey. Mitchell just had the best season of her career, 20 points per game, 5th in MVP voting,
the engine of the Fever's offense when Clark was injured, and now she's an unrestricted free agent who can go anywhere she wants. Will she stay? Mitchell wouldn't commit during her exit interview. She just smiled and said, "Indy is like my second family. Everything I've been through the last 8 years, I don't think there was any other place that was greater for me." That's not a yes, but it's not a no either. And then there's Sophie Cunningham herself, the woman who started all of this, the enforcer who broke her silence and exposed the jealousy, the resentment, the behind-closed-doors conversations. She's also a free agent, and she made something very clear. "I'm just tired of our league. They need to step up and be better. Our leadership from top to bottom needs to be held accountable." Cunningham said she'll explore all offers this offseason. That means the woman who became Caitlin Clark's most vocal defender might not even be on the Fever next season. Think about that for a second. The player who said, "Dude, I got you," in that locker room after the Connecticut game, the player who went on that podcast and called out the jealousy, the envy, the players who wanted to hurt Clark, the player who literally wrapped her arms around an opponent's neck and drove her face first into the floor to protect her rookie teammate. She might be playing against Clark next year. And that's the kind of drama the WNBA lives for. But here's the bigger picture. Lin Dunn's interview wasn't just about the past. It was about the future. She wanted you to know that the Fever survived the chaos, that the locker room didn't break, that the right players stayed and the wrong players left. But now the Fever have to do it all over again. New season, new roster, new contracts, new personalities, new egos. And Caitlin Clark, she's coming off an injury-plagued season where she only played 13 games. She's been rehabbing, getting her body right, preparing for USA basketball events. But she's also watching, listening, learning. And according to everyone who knows her, she's not worried about the drama. She's not worried about the jealousy. She's not worried about who stays and who goes. She's just focused on winning. "I know I belong," Clark said before the 2025 season. "I know I can perform, and I can make my teammates better every single night. And that's my job." That's the difference between Caitlin Clark and everyone else. While the league is fighting over contracts, threatening lockouts, leaking stories to reporters, and nursing grudges from seasons past, Clark is just getting better. And that's what really drives her haters crazy. Not that she's good, but that she doesn't care about anything except winning. Lin Dunn knows this. That's why she spoke out. Not to start drama, not to throw anyone under the bus, but to tell you the truth. The Fever almost broke. The jealousy almost won. The resentment almost destroyed something special. But it didn't, because the people who matter, the ones who bought in, they chose Clark. And now the rest of the league has to deal with the consequences. So here's what I need from you. If you made it to the end of this video, you're not just a WNBA fan. You're someone who wants to know what's really happening behind the scenes, the real stories, the real drama, the real truth. And trust me, this story is far from over. Free agency is coming, the CBA deadline is coming, a potential lockout is coming, and every single decision the Fever make this offseason will determine whether Caitlin Clark becomes a champion or whether the jealousy finally wins. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe, hit that bell icon, because when the next bombshell drops, and it will drop, you're going to want to be here before the algorithm figures it out. Lin Dunn spoke. The truth is out. Now we wait to see who stays, who goes, and who's brave enough to stand next to Caitlin Clark when the whole league is watching. I'll see you in the next one.